And this study was with child care centers. It's really interesting that in preschool teachers often are required, not always, but if it's a certified preschool program, if you're a teacher, you often have to have the same credentials as a kindergarten or first and second grade teacher, or whatever, this early education degree that you have. But what's interesting, and it says a lot, I think, about how we value these jobs as a society, is they're generally paid far less than. So if you teach kindergarten, you make a lot more money than if you teach 5-year-olds, you make more money than if you teach 4-year-olds. And if you think about that, the rationale for that would be like paying 11th grade teachers more than we'd pay 10th grade teachers, or 3rd grade teachers more than 2nd grade teachers. And it just really, there's no basis for it, other than, I think, the devaluing of the job in some ways, historically and traditionally. That traditionally this was work that was performed unpaid by family members, and so why should we compensate for it? And so what you're seeing is this movement across the country, and there are 38 states that have some form of this, some form of universal or trying to get to universal access to preschool, to pre-K education. That there's a lot of data, the data are very compelling, that quality preschool is really important, and the payoff down the road on it is I think it's undisputed. I'm sure people dispute it, but it's undisputable by anyone who's looking at the research. So one of the things that you're seeing is this trend toward, because preschool and early childhood education has always been on the back burner, what you're seeing is their goal is to get to be as good as K through 5. If only we can be as good as 1st grade. And when you think about that, what a low bar. That is because we don't do a great job, across the board. We can do a great job, but again, scale, we think about scaling, we don't do a great job across the board on that. But nonetheless, that's the aspiration. And we really started thinking about, well, does that make sense? Is the model that we use in 3rd grade the right model for 4-year-olds? And we think about that not so much in terms of things like curriculum or how you design the day for the kids, but rather we think about it as a workforce issue. And that's kind of what we bring to it in terms of all these studies of different settings. I mean, in every university, every state university, you have an entire school devoted to education, so presumably they're the experts in things like, curriculum, etc. But again, what we think we bring to the table is some perhaps insights on knowledge management, in management more generally, I suppose. So in any case, we looked at 62 child care centers in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and several hundred teachers. And the punchline on the study is this, that it's a job that's inherently improvisational. That is to say, you've got to adjust all the time. That, when we think about improvisational work as being like an air traffic controller. But when you think about what it's like to take care of 3-year-olds, it's far more improvisational. It's just so inherent in the job. But in addition to that, the work is inherently collaborative, that you always have more than one adult in the classroom. And one of the things we found that was very predictive of the quality of care was the nature of that collaboration. So it wasn't enough to just be flexible and kind of rearrange your day, depending on what the kids were like that day, but rather you also had to be able to do that with your colleague. And if you were just kind of doing it on your own, that was detrimental to quality. But if you're doing it collaboratively, and you're doing it in a way that isn't just, okay, I'll do X and you do Y. For example, there are some child care centers where the teachers do all the instruction, what they call instruction, and the teachers' aides do all the cleaning up. So they do the diapers and the meals and those kinds of things. But what we found is that kind of just division of labor didn't really work. That instead, no matter how flexible you were within your little areas of responsibility, but rather that working together was really what was very important. And more important than experience, more important than educational, again, that this social capital trumping human capital. And again, that's not to say that human capital is important. It is. It absolutely is. But again, we think it's probably been emphasized a little too much that we're looking for a silver bullet, and it doesn't really exist for these kind of jobs.